Welcome to the 700 Club. News from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Israel has defeated half of Hamas's forces in Gaza. The IDF is also keeping a close eye on the threat from Hezbollah in the north.
Well, Iranian-backed militia have attacked yet another U.S. base in the Middle East, and the Pentagon is planning more strikes in retaliation. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
Iranian-backed militia continue to carry out attacks in the region, despite the U.S. launching dozens of strikes over the weekend in retaliation for the deaths of 3 U.S. service members. An attack near a U.S. base in Syria killed 6 members of a U.S. allied Kurdish militia. The Pentagon said more strikes against Iran's proxies are coming.
This is the start of our response, and there will be additional actions taken to hold the IRGC and affiliated militias accountable for their attacks on U.S. and coalition forces.
Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Saudi's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman Monday. It's Blinken's 5th Mideast visit since the war in Gaza. He faces major challenges. Hamas and Israel are at odds over a potential truce, and Israel dismissed calls for a Palestinian state. The UN announced it's launched an independent review of UNRWA after reports that its workers took part in the October 7th massacre. The IDF says it's raided the Hamas headquarters in Khan Yunis and found training materials for the October 7th attacks. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told IDF soldiers Israel has defeated more than half of Hamas's forces in Gaza, including 18 of 24 brigades. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar is on the run.
Sinwar moves from hiding place to hiding place. He is unable to communicate with his surroundings, and in recent days, IDF fighters have found the materials in the places he has been recently. And thanks to them, we are improving our operations, deepening our grip on Hamas plans.
Gallant also warned that Israel is prepared to take action against Hezbollah on its northern border if diplomacy fails.
Hezbollah will not be able to threaten the residents of Israel through raids or through direct fire. I say here explicitly and unequivocally, if the political move does not succeed, we will not hesitate to use military force for the return of the residents safely to their homes.
Currently, about 80,000 Israelis have left their homes on Israel's northern border.
We all abandoned our homes, our businesses, everything. And that's it. The city is deserted. Scared people.
In case of war, hospitals in the north are preparing underground wards.
Well, Chris Mitchell joins us now from our Jerusalem bureau. So, Chris, tell us, what does Israel need to do to finish the goal of eliminating Hamas?
Well, Gordon, first of all, they nearly completed their goal of controlling Khan Yunis, one of the major strongholds in the south of Gaza. The next major goal is going further south to Rafah. And that's significant, Gordon, because it's the last major Hamas stronghold in Gaza, but it's also going to be very sensitive. One, because many refugees have already fled there, more than 1 million. And some Hamas terrorists have actually infiltrated in those refugees and will be using them as human shields. And the other reason is because it's really on the Egyptian border. And Egypt has said it really doesn't want any Palestinians flooding into Egypt. And another goal is as it was reported in our story, the capture of the head of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar. Fiercely devoted to destroying Israel, killing Jews, one of the masterminds of October 7th. And he would have tremendous symbolic value if Israel can kill or capture him, be a major blow to the remaining Hamas fighters. But he also, Gordon, he controls the fate of the hostages, and it's likely that he has many living hostages near him as human shields. He's been in the negotiations for their release, but it does sound like the IDF is getting very close to him, and they're reporting that he's just trying to survive and he's lost control of Hamas right now.
What's your prediction here on the length of time necessary to eliminate Hamas, secure Gaza, stop the terrorist attacks to Israel? Is there any kind of time frame? Can anyone predict how long this is going to take?
Well, the IDF has been saying for a while it's going to take months, but I actually, Gordon, I think it's actually going to take less time than that. I think they're going, their goals are actually going fairly well. And you have to realize that what they're fighting, Gordon, is a warfare that has never been done before. They're fighting above the ground and they're fighting below the ground. And some military historians said they're going to be studying what the IDF has done here for many, many years. And so, but I think they may be actually closer to what many people may think. And then, Gordon, many people say there's going to be an insurgency phase where people are actually, insurgents, Hamas terrorists are going to infiltrate into the civilian population, and that may take a lot longer.
Okay. Well, turning to the northern border, there's signs that Hezbollah will agree to Israeli demands. I think lost in this whole narrative of southern Lebanon is the UN set up a demilitarized zone. There aren't supposed to be any military assets, any troops, any tunnels in this area of Lebanon, but here they are. So is Hezbollah going to pull back from the border?
Well, it seems unlikely right now, and war kind of does seem inevitable. One person in the north said on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 15 for actually going to war. The IDF said in a briefing the other day that they're ready for peace, but preparing for war defensively, offensively, in their preparedness. And their goal is to change the security situation in the north. As we reported, there's about 80,000 Israelis that can't go home. And the strategic goal right now, overall for the IDF, focus on Gaza, finish what they can, their major goals, and then turns to the north and Hezbollah. And those diplomatic efforts that you were talking about, Gordon, you're right. In Resolution 1701 said back in 2006, after the Second Lebanon War, that there could be no military infrastructure except for the Lebanese army and UNIFIL. And that really is not worth the paper it's written on right now, because Hezbollah has flooded South Lebanon. That's their major stronghold. Maybe 150,000 rockets, many of them precision guided. So if war, or when war breaks out, Gordon, it's going to be very, very dangerous for all of Israel, because these missiles can go all the way through all of Israel. Really an important time to be praying for the peace of Jerusalem and all of Israel.
What's the danger for the U.S.? It looks like the conflict is widening pretty dramatically just over the past 48 hours with attacks on U.S. troops, now yet another attack, and then the response from U.S. military, it looks like it's increasing. Are we in danger of a much broader war throughout the region?
It does seem like that way, Gordon. You know, hey, you have the Houthis right now in the Red Sea that are disrupting global trade. That can't be something that you can live with. And then those attacks on the U.S. bases in Syria and Iraq. And it does seem like Iran is not going to stop these attacks through their proxies, the Iranian-backed militias in Iraq and Syria. They're not going to stop Hezbollah, likely. So it looks like there's a brewing confrontation between not only these proxies of Iran throughout the region, but maybe even Iran itself. And we'll see what happens. But it does look like it is escalating right here in the Middle East, Gordon.
Well, it's time to issue a call to prayer, so I'll do that. For you watching at home, this is a time to pray. It's a time to pray not just for the peace of Israel, the peace for the entire region. And we will not escape this. If it turns into a much wider war, we'll be right in the middle of it. And if you think that somehow our national borders are a protection, think again. Hezbollah isn't just a risk to Israel. New intelligence warns the terror group could soon strike Americans. Defense experts agree Hezbollah has the ability to attack U.S. interests at home and abroad. National Security Correspondent Caitlin Burke reports.
According to new data gathered by U.S. intelligence agencies, the risk of an assault by Hezbollah is rising alongside growing tensions in the region.
Hezbollah is a very real threat to us here in the United States.
Simone Ladine, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Mideast Policy, says the Iran-backed terror group has a longer reach than many others in the region.
They have sleeper cells here in the U.S. in many cities across the country. This has been documented in multiple court cases. And we have reason to believe that they also have caches where they have stored materials around the country in the event that someone hits the go button to start attacks. I believe they are pretty well prepared. They have been sitting in wait for the order to go for, many believe, for years now.
As official Washington proceeds with caution due to concern about sparking a wider regional conflict, experts like Ladine warn we're already past that point.
I think that we collectively are in an expanding regional conflict. And as much as we are resisting it right now, and the current administration is responding to it right now, we are in it. We should be reconsidering our strategic objectives. What's our end game here? And how do we get from here to there? Because right now, here's not a good place for the United States to be. It is not in the U.S. interest to be sort of on the defense.
Since the start of the war in Gaza, American troops in the Middle East have been attacked more than 160 times.
We need to be aligning with our partners, the Israelis, the British, and some others, and maybe share some targeting packages and start executing some military operations to make sure that the Iranians, but also our other adversaries who are watching, so that they understand that a red line has been crossed, Americans have been killed, the disruption of global shipping is not something that we are willing to accept, and let's change the dynamic.
Iran remains the common element between all of these players, and Ladine says the regime has complete control over its proxies. Still, official messaging coming from Iranian leadership following these most recent attacks: we're not after a war with the U.S., but will respond strongly if, quote, an oppressive country or force wants to bully us. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Keep in mind what they're saying on the streets, and whether that's in Ramallah or what the Houthis are saying. You know, you look at some of the reports, these mass protests where they're protesting Israel. They're calling Israel a colonizer. They're not recognizing Israel's right to exist. That's the reason the Houthis exist. That's why the reason Hezbollah exists. That's the reason Hamas exists. They have it in their own documents, their founding documents. They want to wipe Israel off the map. And that ideology has completely taken over them. They can't go against that, because in that they would be going against what their parents have taught them, what their grandparents have taught them. They have to adhere to that. We're fighting a war of ideology, and until that ideology changes, we're not going to see peace. You're not going to see a two-state solution, and you're not going to see these terrorists suddenly wake up and say, well, this isn't a way to live. I need to live in peace with my neighbors. That's not going to happen. In the meantime, they're threatening global shipping. They're threatening U.S. bases. They're killing our soldiers. And they've killed dramatically Israeli citizens, innocent civilians who were caught up on October 7th. That is the end result of this ideology. We need to realize when somebody is saying from the river to the sea, what they're saying is October 7 again and again and again on a massive scale until every Jew is killed in Israel. We have to stand with Israel. We have to stand for what is right. And now more than ever, we need to pray that God would intervene. Without him, I don't see a progress to peace anytime soon.